Men, why do you often say you're fine even when you're not? Because sometimes people don't give a damn about that, and it depends about context. In some context is better to seems okay. Because I think most believe that nobody truly gives a fuck. Because you can't fix it? I don't have the energy to start to dive into why I'm not fine when I know there is no resolution. Till Sequoyah, an illiterate warrior of the Cherokee Nation, observed the talking leaves, writing, of the white man in 1813. He thought it was military advantage and created a syllabary for Cherokee from scratch in 1821. It caught on quickly and Cherokee literacy surpassed 90% just 9 years later. Sequoyah didn't work completely from scratch, he had access to at least an English Bible and borrowed many symbols from it. Outside of that, yeah, the work was his. He had a concrete example that writing was possible and that was enough inspiration to, eventually, make a functional syllabary. Leaf and page are homophones in Spanish, hoja. Till in 2022 an 18-year-old student, who did genealogical research as a hobby, cracked the unsolved 1964 murder of a 9-year-old girl in Hazleton, PA. He researched for 18 months and created 50 complete family trees to find a connection to Hazleton, which eventually led him to zero in on culprit James Forte. I wish the article would have explained more about the ancestry research process. It sounds fascinating. The little girl's name was Maris and Chivarella. I just always hate when headlines are written like this, leaving out the victim's name but including the assailant. Her name was Maris and she was walking to school with her arms loaded with cans for a classroom food drive. She was sexually assaulted before he strangled her and left her body in coal mining pit. Her name should be the one that's remembered now. What is a rich person thing you would be totally into if you became rich? Paying people to do all of the chores of being a grown-up, scheduling appointments, paying my bills, cleaning my home, cooking my food, running errands, buying clothes, maintaining my home, etc. Not worrying about money. That seems so nice. Hiring a personal chef. Secret passages in my home. Going on multiple vacations a year. What would you do if you woke up tomorrow and the year is 2005? Breathe a huge sigh of relief and do everything differently. I'm firing up Halo 2 on Xbox Live ASAP. Assuming I'm back to the age I was, I'd do everything differently, make better and lasting friendships, nurture talents like singing or some sport. I'd just make a better version of myself. Go pee. I almost always have to pee when I wake up. I'd hug my sister. She died in 2006. Till about a 747 hijacking where the jet had to land in Algeria to refuel. The lead flight attendant actually had to buy 6,000 gallons of jet fuel on her personal credit card because the Algerians insisted on payment first. As a pilot I had to float my company $3,000 for a fuel bill in Canada since the credit card we kept on the plane didn't work there. Thankfully they had the direct deposit in my account by the time I landed back in the US, and they forgot to account for the exchange rate, so I actually came out a few hundred ahead. To be fair to the Algerian negotiators, this was actually a pretty good stalling tactic to keep the plane on the ground. What would be your reaction if Donald Trump dies tonight? Holy shit, what did /u/K4Tour know that the rest of us didn't? Ah, shit. I can smell the conspiracy engines firing up now. Wouldn't it be really weird if he actually drops dead tonight? You should never say bad things about the dead, only good. Joan Crawford is dead, good. Bette Davis. There's absolutely no way the conspiracy crowd would see it as just a normal thing that happens to old people. I'd be pretty worried tbh. What's a hack in your industry that customers aren't supposed to find out? Orchestral violinist. Sometimes we don't play all the notes. I worked at a restaurant and one time the chef burned the applesauce that was supposed to be served with the pork chop. He put it on the menu as smoked applesauce and people loved it. Till that the guy who wrote the first They Came for the poem was a self-professed anti-Semite who voted for the Nazis in 1924, 1928, and 1933. This actually makes the poem more powerful, not less. Its whole gist is that the speaker was against them until the only other left was himself. Your name will always eventually be on the list. And noted anti-slavery campaigner John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, once owned slaves. Sometimes people realize they were wrong. People who rarely get sick, what are your secrets? If you are tired, sleep. Don't burn the candle at both ends. Like the saying in Blade Runner. A light that burns twice as bright burns half as long. And you have burned so very brightly, Roy. One secret I swear by is staying active and drinking plenty of water. I live in a shithole country. The things I eat, water I drink and air I breathe are more or less contaminated. Seems like my immune system got adjusted to these. Wash hands, no kids, healthy diet, exercise, outside time. You are in a room with 1,000 randomly selected people. You will only survive if you can beat every single person at one thing. What would you choose? I'd go with the classic challenge to pick up a quarter that's lying flat on the ground with a forklift. I'd choose tearing movie ticket stubs super fast. I used to work at a movie theater, and we had contests to see who could tear the most tickets in the shortest time. I got really good at it, and it's such a random skill that I bet most people wouldn't even think to practice it. Clap louder. When I find the sweet spot, it starts to hurt my hearing. Kidney stone production, sadly. Stacking coins on my elbow and catching them with the hand on that arm. Why are Nazis and KKK not domestic terrorists? The KKK is defined as a domestic terror group and were pretty much the first group with that designation. The KKK and plenty of neo-Nazi groups are labeled as domestic terrorists. What industry is struggling way more than people think? Dry cleaners, WFH, and more casual wear. Some places may never go back to anywhere near the same volume. You start reading this thread and you realize the biggest problem is greed and big corporations owning everything. I've been a professional video editor for the last 12 years, and have never gone more than a week without a job. I've made stuff for many of the country's biggest brands, and have a solid resume. For the first time in my life, I've been submitting resumes every single day for the last 4 months and have not had one interview. It's tough out there right now, fingers crossed my luck takes a turn. Till 55% of the world's population aged 15 and older can't swim. The number of commercial fishermen that can't swim is staggering. I'm glad I can swim, but you'd never see me on a boat if I couldn't. In the UK, school, 1 or 2 weeks of the year we would be taken to a swimming pool, split into 3 groups. Each group was as follows: complete liability in the water, cannot swim. Nearly able to swim. And children who can swim. I believe all schools in England and Wales receive funding so that every child receives at least the basic tuition in swimming lessons. It is a great idea in my hopeless opinion, even if a week isn't always enough to teach the skill. I was on holiday one time listening to the news. The story was of a ferry, overloaded, that sank, near some Indonesian island I think. Of more than 300 passengers only 4 survived, all 3 of the Europeans and 1 Indonesian guy. So why did the 3 Europeans survive when almost no one else did? Were they given special privileges? Life belts. They knew how to swim. The Indonesian guy was a fisherman. Learn to swim. Like and subscribe.